A.W. Tozier famously said, "What comes into a person's mind when he thinks about God is the most important thing about him." He went on to say, "The history of mankind will probably show that no people has ever risen above its religion, and man's spiritual history will positively demonstrate that no religion has ever been greater than its idea about God. Worship is pure or base, as the worshiper entertains high or low thoughts of God. For this reason, the gravest question before the church is always God himself. The most portentous fact about any man is not what he is at a given time may say or do, but what he in the depth of his heart conceives God to be like. We tend by a secret law of the soul to move toward our mental image of God. This is true not only of the individual Christian, but of the company of Christians that composes the church." And so we want to talk today about the first two commandments that deal with your image of God. I record this today with kind of a heavy heart, as 1 week ago today, an officer of the peace put his knee on the neck of George Floyd until his life was extinguished. And it has everything to do with his view of God. If you have a view of God that understands that people matter to God, that George Floyd matters to God, you cannot do this kind of thing. As I went to bed last night, I watched a few videos about cities all over the nation that are on fire in protest of this action. And many of them protesting because they think that in the crowd, they will not be seen and they will not be judged and they will not be held accountable. But if you have a view of God that you understand that God will hold everyone accountable and he is not watching from a distance, he is watching up close and personal, then it changes your behavior in every arena in life. So let's dive into our text, Exodus 20, verses 1 through 6. "And God spoke all these words, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God, who brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or in the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." Spend a little time chatting about that. We tend to think of jealousy as a negative thing. What does it mean that God is a jealous God? And when is jealousy a good thing, and when is it a bad thing? "Punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me." And by the way, it's not that my children will be punished for my sin. It says, punishing the children for the sin of the parents of the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Verse 6, "But showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commands." First thing I observe about this passage is relationship comes before duty. Verse 1 said, God spoke all these words, "I am the Lord your God who brought you up out of the land of slavery." It is one book I read this week in preparation for this study said, we must always remember that Exodus 19 comes before Exodus 20. And back in Exodus 19, we read, "You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt, how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations, you will be my treasured possession." And I would encourage you to look at your folks as I looked at my folks yesterday and say, do you see yourself as God's treasured possession? Is this your image of God? What comes to his mind when he thinks about God is the most important thing about him. And if you see yourself as someone who is treasured by God, if you see God as someone who treasures you, it'll fundamentally change every aspect of your life. "Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation." These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. So the first observation is relationship comes before duty. The second